And
Recording in progress.
We attain the state of Vajradhara. Let's just do the four limitless contemplation. May all beings have happiness and create the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness which can never be tainted by suffering. May they attain universal impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Semchen tamche dewatang dewe jutang denpa juchik Dungal tang, dungal chichu tang trawa juchik, dungal mepe dewa tampatang mindrawa juchik, nering chak tang ni tang trawe, tang nom chempo la ne pa juchik. Okay, so everybody, tonight we're going to do part 2 of clearing our messy karma, the path to Vajrasattva. And I want to really take it a little further tonight. But I want to go back as well and do a couple of things that we did last time, because before you come to the practice of Vajrasattva, of any practice, and we're going to do simple practices of Vajrasattva, you really need to understand what it is that you're clearing in your own self, which is really important. So I'm going to start with a little story called The Worm. And it's a wonderful little story about 2 monks who lived together in a monastery for many years. They were great friends. And then they died within a few months of each other. And one of them got reborn in the heavenly realms, and the other one got reborn as a worm in a dung pile. Quite a strange rebirth after a monk's thing. The one up in the heaven realms was having a wonderful time enjoying the heavenly pleasures, but he started thinking about his friend. I wonder where my old mate has gone. So he scanned all the heaven realms, could not find a trace of his friend. Then he scanned the realm of human beings, could not see any trace of his friend there. So he looked in the realm of animals and then of insects. And finally, he found him reborn as a worm in a dung pile. Wow, he thought, I'm going to help my friend. I'm going to go down there to that dung pile. It's interesting, the story that they go down there and up there, which is not really the right concept. But anyway, I'm going to go down there to the dung pile and take him up so he can also enjoy the heavenly pleasures and bliss of living in these wonderful realms. So he went to the dung pile and called his mate, and a little worm wriggled out and said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm your friend. We used to be monks together in a past life. And I've come to take you to the heaven realms where life is wonderful and blissful." But the worm said, "Go away, get lost. But I'm your friend and I live in the heaven realms," he said. And he described them. But the worm said, "No, thank you. I'm quite happy here in my dung pile. Please go away." Then the heavenly being thought, well, if I could just grab hold of him and take him up and he could see for himself. So he grabbed hold of the worm and started tugging at him. And the harder he tugged, the harder that worm clung to his pile of dung. Now, this story is very, very, very important, okay? Because it's the clinging and attachment that stands in the way of purification. Sometimes we know what we have to purify, but we are very, very, very clinging to the usual way of life, clinging to our own concepts about ourselves, clinging to our awful feelings about ourselves, clinging to being a victim, clinging to all kinds of things that we have done. And when we cling and we are attached, we cannot separate. Now, this is a very important point, because if we're going to do any form of purification or any form of cleansing, we have to know. We have to know the obscurations. We have to know the karmic imprints. We have to know what we are creating on a daily basis. It's really very important, because the path, you know, if we don't clear and purify, There's no way of recognizing, knowing who we really are. There's no way of knowing who we really are. It's just not possible. And the path to enlightenment is a very challenging one for most of us. Why? Because we try and use our logical minds. We try and use our logical minds, to understand what we're doing. And often, enlightenment goes very far past logic. And we need to think completely out of the box. It's such an interesting thing, because when I meet people who just have no idea about anything except their life, it's so difficult to try and point out a completely different way of life, a completely sort of new way, and absolutely something that doesn't go in your logic and that doesn't go in any way, with what you really believe. And, Dzongsa Khyentse, he talks a lot about thinking out of the box, and whatever halalins, and whatever you're doing, whatever one is doing, it's really important when you go on a path of enlightenment to think out of the box and to keep thinking that whatever we've done and whatever negative karma we've got and whatever obscurations we've got, that nature of mind is absolutely never ever tainted by that. Even murder, the pure mind is not tainted by that. Obviously, there's going to have to be payment on a relative level, but it's really very, very different when you see it from a completely out of the box. And because of this challenge, we have to do the work necessary to awaken our potential. And to get there, we simply have to clear what obscures this Buddha nature. Now, obscurations go deeper than karmic imprints. Obscurations are the things that we are so habitually addicted to that we can never ever get rid of them, and until we decide to do these cleansing practices, but first to admit to ourselves what we are doing, because most of us don't want to. And you can challenge me in a minute, I'm happy. But we need to remove the obscuring veils of our emotional habits and karmic imprints, so we can reveal this natural quality of the true nature. It's like a precious jewel, okay? If you've got a diamond and the diamond falls into garbage, okay, and it stays there for many years, and one day someone's looking through the garbage and takes this diamond out. Once you wash it clear, it's not one bit tainted by the garbage. Once it's washed clear, it looks dirty, but it becomes the exquisite diamond again. No garbage affects it, but you need to wash it in order to see the diamond. So our obscurations cover our Buddha nature, our awakened nature, but don't spoil it or stain it in any way. And so we need to realize this when we want a safe and pure place to live in. You can change your address 1,000 times. You can change your country. You don't like it here, you're going to go there. But the bottom line is that it's only when you can find that pure state of mind that you actually can live very happily here. And that's very difficult. And that's what the path to purification, that's what I was talking about last week. And often when we learn and we get empowerments for tantric practices, okay, the tantric practices are becoming the deity. It's not becoming a deity, it's becoming the qualities of your awakened nature. If these practices become polluted with our psychological and emotional confusion, then the practices can't work for us. Not at all, as we don't have a stable vessel to actually hold the process that's unfolding. Now, I happen to remember when I was in India, I don't know why Taisito Rinpoche always wanted to ask me about what did I see here, and what did I see here, and what did I feel about this, and what did I feel about that? When I was in retreat in India, there were all these girls around me. They were all Westerners, okay? Up the road, there was a monastery for the nuns, also females, but nuns that came from Tibet, Nepal, Bhutan, completely different mentality. And when Rinpoche asked me, it was so interesting because these girls that were in retreat, they were in retreat for a couple of years. And a lot of them had breakdowns during the retreat because what was demanded of them, it's unbelievable. I mean, they were demanded 24 hours a day right through the year with no break. And sometimes they didn't have that it took to do that. Whereas the nuns over there really did, and often they would come and talk to me, these girls. They became nuns when they went into retreat. But the one said, you don't know what I went through last year. I cracked down the middle. The point is, so when Rinpoche asked me, I said, you should first do some mental training with these girls before you push them into 24-hour-a-day practices, because a lot of them can't take it. Why? Because that psychology, there's karmic imprints, those obscurations, those habitual patterns come in. And when they're left with this whole pattern of what they have to do, by the time they go to bed, they had to clear lamps, they had to do millions of things. They broke. They actually broke down. Not all of them, but a few of them really had breakdown. One girl next door to me, she did, and the one at the back, who was amazing. And she's still in retreat, but she got up and got through it. But you see, a lot of these Tibetan masters don't understand how we function. So their expectations, I think they're getting much more familiar with it now, much more familiar of how we operate and, what hang-ups we've actually held onto and things like that. But it's really difficult because the practice, which I'm going to explain to you in a minute, goes into your energy winds, and your energy winds in the channel hold the karmic habits. Okay. Now I know, Tati, you have a lot of interaction with your channels and with your energies, and those are your energy winds. And I'm going to go through them tonight because it's really important, because a lot of these practices go into the energy winds to clear them. And then we don't know what's happening. We just feel like we're exploding, or like I used to feel stuff was coming out of my body and things like that. So it's really important that we understand this purification process and how it works, and that it's not just karma, cause and effect. It's a much deeper process. It really, really is. So I'll give you a chance to ask in a moment, okay? But when we do the preliminary practices, we have purification and we have accumulation, and the accumulation I'll do after I'm finished this particular series. It'll probably be next week and finish it off. But then I'll do the accumulation of merit, which is really, really important, okay? But what I want you to understand is that when you are doing a deity practice, it's nothing like an external practice. It's internal. That's why Vajrasattva has 100 syllables, and we'll talk about that in a moment, because we can never see Vajrasattva as one thing, because then we are limiting the scope of the cleansing by this being through our energy winds. In many texts, Vajrasattva is seen in the center of the deities. And what are these deities? These deities are not external. They're the internal qualities of your awakened nature. That's what they are. They're given deity names because it's really very important for you to understand. They're given the names because you then can relate to the quality of that part, because it's your own quality. And it's really important to actually understand that. And like I say to you, Igor, sometimes, that if you look at Tara and you look at Mother Mary, they're the same. All those beings are just the feminine presence, your own feminine presence represented by the deity, but not external. So there's nothing to do with like worshiping deities, you know. Most of these deities, most of them have had some human incarnations, they've emanated, and some of them are just the qualities of our mind, and they remain in that setting. But when we look at a practice like Vajrasattva, which I want to teach all of you to do, just a simple practice, when you look at it, you have to see that Vajrasattva is interchangeable with Akshobhya, who is the second Buddha family that I gave you 2 weeks ago. The Vajra family, that name Vajrasattva is used interchangeably with Akshobhya. But that's not the only place you see Vajrasattva, because when you're learning about all of this, Vajrasattva is right in the center. And so the expansiveness of a being like Vajrasattva can be seen as a Buddha, as a Bodhisattva on his way, as a Heruka, that's one of the fierce deities, as a Vajradhara, that's a knowledge holder. There's no limit to how this vast being appears in different forms, always pure white with rainbow hue, and often embracing his consort, and she also goes by different names. And when you understand that, it's actually right in the center of your heart. So it's not unusual that when you're cleansing, you actually use that part of you in the center of your heart. Because Vajrasattva means indestructible nature, the manifestation of our indestructible nature in absolutely pure form. That's what it really means. And, you know, there's a practice called Kunzang Tuktik. I love it to anything. I'm just waiting for your beautiful being to start giving the empowerment for it. I'm going to take a lot of you and go to India for it. But that's the full practice of the 100 deities. Okay, the 100 deities in our hearts. And Vajrasattva, in that practice, is the one who bestows the empowerments of the Buddha families to us, of the different attributes of everything. So it's fascinating. And if you enjoy the Dzogchen teachings, you have Samantabhadra, who's the Buddha, the Dharmakaya. Then you have Vajrasattva, who's the Buddha, the Sambhogakaya. And then you have Garudoje, who's the Nirmanakaya. And that's what I've been teaching on a Monday, teaching his teaching. So it's really important for you to understand the expansiveness of this practice, okay? And there's a difference. If you do the practice with having Vajrasattva here and him pouring his nectar, cleansing your energy winds, and it's going out of you at the bottom, and you can have other people there who are getting it, you could do the practice like that. But when you do the advanced practice, it's you becoming that deity, Vajrasattva. It's a different thing. We're only going to do here you getting the nectar, because some of you have not had the empowerment, and you need an empowerment in order to do the practice of becoming Vajrasattva. But it's perfectly okay to do the practice of seeing Vajrasattva on top of you and clearing it. So it's very important, okay? And we cannot limit any of his beings. And James Lowe, who's that wonderful Western Buddhist teacher, he says, what's very important for us to remember, and then I'll go on to the cleansing again, is he says, in Tibet, King Indrabhuti was old, blind, without children. There was a famine in the land. There was drought and illness. And he says, what he did was he made these prayers to Amitabha. The prayers were like a hook. Okay, he was throwing up the prayers, and then Amitabha gives him something to hold on to. And then Amitabha manifests the Hri, and Padmasambhava comes into being from Amitabha. But it comes into being because of our request. And I want you all to really understand that, because the Buddha manifests in a particular form if there's a cause by people asking. So when you really want to cleanse your life, when you say, you know what, I'm sick and tired of my life. I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to be a victim. I don't want to be this, that, or the other. When you really are ready to cleanse your life completely, then you create the cause by asking for the purification practice, by taking refuge and asking for the purification practice. And once you've done that, then you move past the causes and conditions of the hook and the cleansing into the emptiness, when we then become the deity, and then there's no separation of any nature. So what he's trying to explain, James Lowe, is that first you have to create the cause to get the cleansing in you. And then once you've created the cause, then you move into a much further situation where you become that quality that is already in you. So it's really important. I don't know if anybody wants to say anything, but I want to go back to what we were doing last time and go to what we are clearing, which is really, really important. Because remember, Vajrasattva gives his, I was telling you last week, gives his absolute, his real aspiration. May the emotional and cognitive obscurations present in the mind stream of any sentient being who utters my name be naturally cleared away and vanish. And that was his vow, his aspiration. So last week I was telling you, all about how we have to remove the obscuring veils, and that the two wings of the bird are purification and accumulation, getting merit. And when people haven't got merit, their life feels very empty. Their life feels very without anything at all. And we need to create the merit, not only by service, but by looking at ourselves in a completely different way, and then looking at people in a different way. So we were talking about that, and we'll do that after this whole thing, how you get merit and how you do the accumulation of merit and wisdom. But as I was telling you last week, that Tsoknyi Rinpoche said, when people have what we call a low self-esteem, when they have a low self-esteem, when they really feel awful about themselves and disappointed, he says that is because there's an absence of merit. And we'll do that later. I want to rather do the cleansing now. But it's really important that you understand that. And so what do you do if you haven't got merit? You damn well create it. You create merit. You really, when you are down and out and you haven't got anything and you're sad and you're lonely and that means there's no merit. Go out and create it. I don't care what you do. Go and sit with a beggar on the pavement and talk to him. Go and help some little child. Go and do something, do service, do a practice. You gain a lot of merit from doing practice. But we'll talk about that another time. Does anyone want to say anything? Because I want to go on tonight to do all the cleansing.
Yeah, no,
Please.
I just want to ask, can you do the Vajrasattva practice if you've received any empowerment, or does it have to specifically be Vajrasattva?
No, look, you see, I was listening to Lama Lena, and she said that you can definitely do, the cleansing and the mantra. You can learn it. People say 100 syllables. It's nothing, 100. When you learn it, you say it after every single practice. You say it in your dreams. You say it everywhere. It becomes nothing, the 100-syllable mantra. But And even the short mantra, which there's a short one of 4 syllables, you can even do that one. But if you're really going to do a deep practice of becoming Vajrasattva, then you should have an empowerment. But you know, it's interesting because the lamas are asking, can they give empowerment on Zoom? It's very interesting.
But
Some,
a lot of people, a lot of the lamas don't like that. They
don't like it.
They don't like it. Yeah,
I know, but you know what? I'm beginning to think like Lama Lena gives it. She's got one YouTube on Vajrasattva, and she gives the empowerment, I think, on it. I haven't got to the end of it, but I think she gives the empowerment. Certainly the lung, which is the reading empowerment, that you can actually do it. So they are doing it now. I think it's because, you know, they have to reach into so many corners of the earth. Like she's got Russians, Chinese, she's got people from all over the world and everything. So she needs to give that, you know, she needs to give that. You should have an empowerment, but to just do the cleansing, it's okay to do it without an empowerment. As long as you say, you know, when I go somewhere, when I go to one of the lamas, I'll ask for the empowerment, you know, or the lung or something, just to give you that protection. It just gives you the protection. But it's not like an exclusive club, you know, that you can't do things. I think it depends on your motivation. I don't know if you all agree. I think that if you're going into it with a pure motivation and you're learning the cleansing and everything, I think it's really okay to say, as soon as I can, I will get the empowerment, you know, then it's just the blessing to do it. But I think if you do it with a pure motive, it's really okay. It really is, you know. So, Tati, you wanted to say something?
Yes, but I'll just comment on what you just said. I heard different teachers saying different things about the empowerment. So it depends on your teacher, I think.
Yeah.
No, I was going to ask about the 100 deities practice that you said that the Vajrasattva does, the bestow the empowerments.
Yeah.
I just was curious about, I don't know anything about the 100 deities, but it might be a bit out the scope at the moment.
Off the scope for the moment, but I am going to, in a minute, give you what the 100 deities really mean. Okay, and this is a practice. The Kunzang Tuktik is a practice. We can't do it. I mean, Taisito is going to give the empowerment over 5 years. So you'd have to go 5 times to India to get it. And I said to my husband sitting there, he said, you won't go to India again. I said, if he gives it, I will go for 5 years in a row to India again, because I want it so much, because that is the essence of everything. And if you really want to read about it in Dzogchen deity practice by Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche, because he does a lot with that, with the Kunzang Tuktik, and it's fascinating. Okay, because you get the 5 Buddha families, and then from the 5 Buddha families, you get all the other things. It's amazing. Did you want to say something, Sharon?
Sorry, I just want to say one thing. Firstly, it's a miracle that we got through to you. We're sitting in load shedding. The first time I've put Zoom on my phone, I managed to use a router that's from Telkom on a battery. And I just did all this quickly. Now the power's come on, and I'm going to switch from my phone to the computer. So you may lose us for a while. But I just wanted to mention something about the 100 deities.
Yes.
We've received this in many ways from different teachers. So a lot of it seems to depend on the lineage. One of the lineages, unfortunately, we were invited and we just didn't realize what was going on. It was in America and we missed out on that. But then we met up with Namkha Norbu and we received the entire practice. It was a 5-day retreat. So we were given the full practice of it in its own way. These things it seems to depend on the lineage. No one told us about 5 years. Maybe Taisitopa's got a different way of presenting it and wants to go through it thoroughly.
No, but not 5, it's 5, like a week.
No, you'd have to go there. But yeah with Namkha Norbu, it was a case of, Shitra retreat in which he gave us the mantras, gave everything, worked through it with us. And you know what? It just went in and it's remained. We sound it every day. A lot of these mantras, the same with the Vajrasattva, which we were given in so many different lineages, I don't know how many times, eventually the mantra itself, those 100 sounds just start to work within you. And it just sounds. You don't actually work it all out. And I'm just mentioning that because
very important.
yeah, that you realize that there's actually it just starts to work. You don't have to work it yourself. That's what I'm trying to say.
100%. I love what you're saying. That's so useful for everybody because it's really true. It's something that's in your bones, you know. And what I like to do is the people I'm working with, when I'm doing it, I like to have them beneath me and my family, a lot of my family members. And then when I'm doing the mantra, I'm pouring it from me through them. And, you know, and it's amazing what power it actually has, because people come to me and they say, I don't know why I'm feeling much better, you know, and then I say, well, I'm doing the cleansing for you. And, you know, it's going through on a daily basis. And so it's amazing, but that's so wonderful. You should have taken me to that retreat, the 5-day retreat. I would have loved it. Okay.
Well, he's gone now, but I'm sure the opportunity will come up again. But
Better
you know,
let me know. Okay.
I certainly will. But these things just, I don't know, they seem to come in different ways in different lineages. We were actually with Yeshe Namkai over the weekend. Not my teacher, but you know, he's been appointed. So I thought we'd listen. And all of a sudden, the last day, he suddenly just gave the full transmission of a most incredible Vajrasattva practice, which when he started, I thought, oh, I've heard this all before. It's the practice that we know, but you sound hum, I think 7 times, and then there's an Oma hum that you sound 9 times. And for each one, there are different things that happen. And he just went through this whole thing in about 15 minutes. He just gave the transmission of it. Totally unexpected. So no one knew he was going to do it.
Bring it and use it. It's so amazing. What you two have received is amazing. Okay, you're very, very, very blessed.
Okay,
and
I'm now going to try to, Ron wants to talk, but he's talking on the phone, okay?
Millie, just one thing I want to mention out of what Sharon was talking about now, and that is initially what I experienced when I joined up with the Dzogchen community. For a while, I was sounding what they gave me, and I was just sounding it, and then the sounding. But then all of a sudden, at some stage, I discovered that I wasn't sounding anymore. I was listening. And then I gathered then that I mustn't interfere by sounding, but when I listen to it, the sounds are there. And then there's a great understanding of what it is about. It becomes alive. It's not just something that I recite anymore, but it really shifts things and in a different state then for a while.
And I know why that happens, because when you understand mantra, when you really understand mantra, you don't say, oh, I'm reciting Om Mani Padme Hum. When you understand it, mantra goes together with energy, goes together with speech, goes together with all those things. So when you're reciting the mantra, you actually are really impressing the energy. The whole energy system of the body changes from the mantras. Yeah. It's so fascinating because you really, really, really can make changes just by reciting the mantra, because you're actually working into the energy system of your body, which is amazing, really. Anyway, that's great. Try and get on your computer then.
I'm trying to do that now. Okay.
So how do we get to a clear, haunting, traumatic, stressful past? Okay, let's try you there. Stressful past situations when they arise, especially in retreat, and keep intruding in our practice. because we no longer have the distractions of a busy daily life. Sometimes in our lives, we're so busy that it's, and you know, we have very, very little time. Oh, good. I think you're on now. There we are. And we have very little time to sit down and look within. And we prefer it like that. There are lots of people that don't like to look within, okay? And we prefer it not only with trauma, but with smaller negative imprints. A lot of people can't sit with themselves. There's so many people that can't be alone, because the minute they're alone, all these haunting things come out. But none of these go away, even if you lead a full active life. And they do eventually come back to haunt us. And this is where the Buddhist practices like Vajrasattva are given to assist us with what we are told. I read, and it says there, we've got a pile of negative karma as tall as Mount Meru from hundreds of lifetimes, okay? So it's very, very interesting to actually see that. In fact, the Nondra, the preliminary, is all about accumulation and purification, and worked out to amazing ways of getting all we need if we want to become enlightened and clear this mountain. So let's look now at what are the levels of purification. In the Tibetan tradition, 2 levels of purification are described. The first one is called Dikpa, D-I-G-P-A, Dikpa. And Dikpa are the wrong actions that leave traces in your alaya or substrate consciousness that endlessly ripen as suffering, your karmic actions of body, speech, and mind. And they are created through an inner intention born of the 3 central poisons. So what are the 3 central poisons out of which everything comes? I like to use the I-O-N ending, then it's very easy, because the poisons are passion, aggression, delusion. Those are the 3 poisons out of which all the other poisons come. So passion is your craving and desire. Aggression is your anger and your grudges and your pain, and it goes into your fears and all of that. And delusion is your ignorance, ignoring the truth. So they come out of that, and they leave imprints or seeds within the alaya or substrate consciousness. And then, as we all know, when the right conditions arise, often not even in the same life, they ripen. The karma ripens, and we experience the fruits of the karma in form of our life experience. The more advanced we are on the path, the quicker the imprints ripen. It's very, very interesting, because, you know, mostly when you get that awareness, instantaneous payment. So like you do something to someone, immediately you get sick, or something happens to you, because there's no gap. But for some people, the gap can be over years or a very, very long time. It doesn't matter. So the causes and conditions are complex. And then, in addition to that, there are, number 1, the habitual reactions that arise with this ripening, the habitual reactions. So what happens is you do something once, like if you take somebody that's an alcoholic or that lies to get themselves out of things, or whatever the case is, that becomes a habitual reaction in the end, okay? So it becomes a habit that we get into. Secondly, it influences the way we color the environment through our projections. So the minute we're saying, I'm so useless, I'm so pathetic, I can't do anything, I'm really hopeless, okay, that colors our environment through our projections. And I keep saying to you, well, you need to create another environment. Well, how can I stop this? What can I do? How am I going to end this? Stop, look, listen, and create a different environment for yourself. And let's do it together, because it's really important, because otherwise, when these things become a habit, when these imprints go deeper and deeper, and they become habits, like I watch people, for example, who are weed smokers, they just go on and on and on smoking weed. And they keep telling you that they're fine. That's how they do it, but they can't go without weed. That habitual reaction then influences the way they project into the environment. And thirdly, shapes the conditions that give rise to both our suffering and our happiness. We create the suffering, so we need to clear our inner minds to stop the habits. It's very important that you understand it. If you've got a life where you've continuously got no money, no friends, no this, no that, no the other, that's your habitual creation. Now it's come to fruit. Now it's come to manifest. So you have to change it. You don't have to change it by getting another environment. You have to change it by going inwards to your inner mind and changing what reflections come out from the mirror from you. This is so important, because every minute of our day-to-day experiences is an expression of these imprints. So if it's not going well, stop blaming everything in the environment and start saying, what is it that I am not creating? Or what is it that I am projecting? And that's how you stop it, because you can project a completely different thing. But while this is happening on a relative level, our Buddha natures are not even slightly tainted by all of this, no matter what we're going through. So see, this is urgent to awaken to. Once we are in touch with the ultimate, the whole view of what we're going through is totally transformed, even to the point of feeling grateful that we have this opportunity, open portal to unity, to purify our self-created karma. So I want to give you this little story, and then you can. So that's the first level of purification, called dripa. Okay, dripa. And then, called dikpa, not dripa. Dripa is the second one. Dikpa. So I'm going to give you this story. Okay. So Patrul Rinpoche says, if you falsely accuse and criticize now, it's the effect of your having told lies in the past. Instead of getting angry and hurling insults at people who say such things about you, be grateful to them for helping you exhaust the effects of many negative actions. You should feel happy. Riksen Jigme Lingpa says, an enemy repaying your good with bad makes you progress along in your practice. His unjust accusations are a whip that steers you towards virtue. He's the teacher who destroys all your attachment and desires. Look at his great kindness that you can never repay. Now, Chagdud Tuku must be your husband of Kandro Chagdud. This is his story. He tells a story that illustrates the attitude advised by them. The story is about his own sister, the very remarkable yogini Tingli Wangmo, who recounts an incident that occurred during the Chinese invasion. So what happened is, as she was riding her horse along the road, she was seized and brutally beaten by the highest Chinese official in the region. He used as his weapon the thick branch of a thorn tree. She was not angry as he beat her, for she recognized the beating as karmic purification. Can you imagine? Thinking it's karmic purification while you're getting beaten with a big thing. Okay. In that tumultuous moment, she made a prayer that by her suffering, others might be spared. Chagdud Tulku continues the story, illustrating the extraordinary impact that reversing one's usual attitude towards suffering can have. When he thought he had beaten her to the brink of death, The official let her fall to the ground. To his amazement, she remounted her horse, and with a wild, triumphant yell that compassed him, she galloped away. The official jumped on his own horse and overtook her. He was amazed to see that her wounds had already healed. I mean, unbelievable. He invited her to stay at his house, and the next morning gave her 600 yuan before sending her on her way, asking that she pray for him when he died. Okay, he realized who she was and asking him. Now, the karmic link that Tinle Wangmo had forged with the Chinese official by her action was evidently a strong one. As it happened, the Chinese government officials later summoned her to the regional capital, and upon arrival, as she was walking to their offices, she passed a funeral procession. "Who is that?" she asked. "That is the governor of this region who just died," she was told. Tinle Wangmo began to pray, happy to be able to fulfill his request. I mean, how would we ever become like that? You know, I mean, how would we ever become like that? But it's amazing. And these stories are not few and far between. They really are stories that have happened that these lamas tell us about. And it makes you think, oh my God, we get one little beating or one little thing, and then we're falling apart at the seams. You know, we can't bear it. So it's a very interesting thing. Does anyone want to comment or say? And I'm going to go on to the second level of purification. Anyone?
So Mel, it's like the two things are happening simultaneously. So all the relative habitual patterns, those thoughts of like, oh, I can't get anything right, or I'm fat, or you know, I'm broke, or whatever it is, that's all happening on the surface. But then if we're aware of the Rigpa, then it's like they're both happening at exactly the same time.
Exactly. Precisely. And when they're happening both at the same time, then what happens?
Well, sorry for the noise. Breville is cooking. But so okay, if they're happening at the same time, then the habitual pattern is going to arise, and then you're going to recognize it, and instead of project it out, sit with it, and then let it go, and then it liberates by itself. But it doesn't mean that it's just going to stop coming up.
No.
It's just going to keep coming up. But the more you project it out there, the more people are going to be like, what? That's not the truth. But if you stop projecting and you just let it come up, but then look at it as your own
exactly, your own self-created
yes, that's
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And then it will liberate more and more. But because we're in samsara,
yeah.
It doesn't stop. It's like the very nature of where we're living in this consciousness, the very nature of it is confusion.
Completely ignorance and delusion.
Ignorance, yes.
Stories and stories and stories, you know.
All the time.
Unbelievable. So the thing is, when you tell yourself these stories, you start believing in them. You've got a story around everything, and you start.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's what Lama Lena says. She says, there your thoughts are. There are the stories about your thoughts, your feelings. She said, just let them be, but we can't, because of these obscurations that have been going on for so long. We just go back to them very easily. And that's what we've got to stop doing. It's really important, you know.
Yes. But now what I try to do, Mel, is when it comes up, like I have a lot of paranoia that comes up. And then I look at it and I go, oh, that's very interesting. And then I just like try and carry on. So I'm just letting it come up, and then I'm going, oh, that's back again. Wow, there's a lot of that.
Notice
and then
that it's again. Yeah.
Yes, and then I just let it play out, but I try and keep it to myself because it's my mind, it's my projection, it's my mud that I'm seeing.
It's your creation. And when you
Yes.
decide that your creation is not going to be tripping you up anymore, and when you do the practice into the energy winds, which we'll talk about, then it clears everything. It's amazing.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I really think what you're saying is so true and very good. But what you say, which is even more important, is that you get it and then you do it again. And then you do
Yes.
it again. And then you do it again. And then people say, how do you stop doing it? You do, you know. If you
Yeah.
use that awareness, you do stop doing it eventually. You know,
Eventually. Okay. Okay.
you do stop eventually because that's it. You realize who you are and you're going to stop. But
Yeah.
the second level of purification, those we all know about, dikpa, but dripa is the second purification, the obscurations. And there are two levels of obscurations. One, non-drup, it's called in Tibetan, and two, shedrup. Now, what are these two obscurations? The first one are obscurations, the psychological and emotional habits of the mind. This is what you're talking about, that lead to non-virtue and unhappiness and keep us bound to cyclic existence, bound to what the stories we're telling. They prevent peace and they prevent liberation, okay, from cyclic existence. And they have a distorted view of the world. You need to change these non-drup because it's when you are actually, the habits bind us to that unhappiness and keep us bound to this existence that we are leading every day. And we don't realize we get up in the morning, same thoughts, same feeling about the day, same output, same story. And then we wonder why we never feel good about it. It's that first lot, non-drup, keep us bound to cyclic existence and a distorted view of the world. The second one, shedrup, are more subtle. And shedrup are the innate tendency in the mind that gives rise to false dualistic appearance of things which appear to be solid and real from their own side. So like what you're saying is, you walking along in your life, somebody annoys you or something, or maybe it's not even another person. Maybe it's just your own feeling of, oh God, another day, another long, difficult day, whatever the case is, whatever you're doing, okay? And we think that it's happening because of the circumstances of our life, because you're there and I'm here and we separate and we think it's happening because of that. It's a false view. We think that we are separate. When someone's going through, you know, in my profession, we're told never to cry with people, okay? You know how many people I cry with? And, you know, people say, but that's not professional. I say, it's so professional. You don't, whatever professional means, you don't understand, okay? Because I'm sure I'm not professional. My son criticized me. He's a psychologist, and he criticizes me for the way, you know, I talk to people or let them come in or whatever the case is. But I think that is because there's no separation between you and the pain of people. It's not outside of you in that person and not affecting me. It's we are one. But in our false obscuration, we see the world there and we are here and these are mine and mine are separate from you. And that's where we make such a big mistake because we have a false dualistic appearance and everything seems to be solid and real from their own side. So in general, from the sutric perspective, there are three aspects of purification. The purification of the karma, the karmic imprints, which give rise to much of our suffering. Secondly, the purification of our mental habits and emotional obscurations that confuse and distort reality. And thirdly, the purification on a subtle level of mind's deeply ingrained tendency to remain trapped in the hallucination of appearances as self-existent. That's your duality. This is happening to me, and it's real. Well, it's really real. I was talking to someone today about how do you distinguish between what's reality and what's non-reality? If this is reality that I'm living in, teaching you, then what's unreality? Maybe this is unreality, and reality is when we're in our pure state and we're in a pure form and we see everything as pure. But the other way around, we've got it. So these are all our obscurations. We have to change, because it's not the world that's got to change. It's the way we see it that's got to change. These lamas, they're in no better physical conditions than we are, but they still see the purity of the world. The physical conditions. Every time I say to Lama Yeshe Rinpoche, how are you feeling? When he was really going through a lot of illness, he goes, if your mind is good, then you're good. Okay? And how do we feel? If you say to me, how are you feeling? And I go, oh, I'm so sick and I can hardly move my body and I feel so awful. Why do I feel so awful? Because that's my creation and that's how I see it. And that's my habit and that's what I feel. Which reality do we live in? Sometimes when I'm meditating and everything and I'm looking at the sky, I'm living in another world. Sometimes when I'm reading the Dharma or studying it or contemplating it, I'm in another world, and it's such a vibrant, happy, light place to be in. And then I come back in and then everybody's crying. You know, everybody's got difficulties. Everybody's doing something that is so unhappy. It's really, really important. And also, just one more point, then we'll do a meditation, that Rob Priest, I mentioned this last time, which is very interesting. He said he questioned certain people to call the Vajrasattva purification process purification or healing. Now, what he says is, we know that when we have created our self-created karma that we have done, what we taught is that we take responsibility for that karma. But now what happens if you're raped, if you're attacked, if you're one of the hostages, say, that got taken now in Israel? What happens then? Can you stand up? Let's say you've got this Buddha Dharma. Can you then stand up and purify it, okay? And take responsibility for it? Because is there such a thing as somebody being in the wrong place at the wrong time? I'm asking that question. Is there such a thing as somebody being in the wrong place at the wrong time? I don't think so. You might think so. Because why is it? I remember, Rona, do you remember that plane crash of do you remember all the people coming to your house that we had? What was it? Where was it when they came? What was the plane crash called? The
Helderberg.
Helderberg. I remember all those people because I was counseling a whole lot of people who lost relatives on that Helderberg, which was supposed to happen, a bomb, so it was around us. And I remember there were certain people that were supposed to be on that aeroplane and didn't go on the aeroplane for whatever reason. And one of the people we were counseling, whose husband was on the Helderberg, he was not supposed to be on the Helderberg, but what happened to him was he got chicken pox or something of all things, so he had to cancel the flight he was supposed to be on, and then he took this fated Helderberg. So if you go into the stories, you know, whoever was on that plane was on that plane. Now, if you can say, is somebody shouldn't have taken that plane and they did and they died? You can't say that, because everything happens because of all the conditions that come. And so when you have a terrible trauma, it's very, very difficult to say to people, now, I want you to take responsibility for why you were raped. You flirted with the guy and then he raped you, or something like that. It's not helpful to them, because by doing that, what you're actually doing is you actually, if you ask them to take responsibility for what happened, it sometimes comes with a lot of self-blame and self-hatred, you know, that people feel awful about themselves if you try. So what you do is you just change the Vajrasattva practice into healing rather than purification. Whereas in most of the purification, you're actually saying, I'm responsible for this, therefore I'm doing the purification thing because I'm responsible. But if it's a trauma, you have to really, really be careful with people if you give them this practice, because the intention has got to be different. Because to say to them, you know, you need to take responsibility for this, which is self-created, is not helpful. The trauma is too deep and it's too painful, and your compassion doesn't let you do it. So what Rob Priest did was, he said, we don't re-wound the trauma. We just say, this is a healing process. And then the person sees the Vajrasattva nectar going through the energy winds and clearing out the trauma without having to say, I'm taking responsibility. But it's a very interesting question, because if you look at these hostages, you've got to ask yourself, you know, why were some people taken from that concert and others weren't? Why did some people die and others didn't? Why did some people come out alive and others didn't? You don't understand the process. We just ask for the healing of the people, not for the responsibility. It's a very important point that Rob Priest makes, because, you know, you have to, you don't want to see yourself as a victim of abuse, but you want to help the person to clear the trauma and not induce more trauma. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Mel.
Yes.
I think in my view is, you started talking about that is based on clinging and attachment. I think the way to go is actually looking into those two aspects and not naming so much, because if we see the difference that, you know, from English to Tibetan and the concepts, I think it'll probably not be quite the same.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I think you see, I just want to say one thing, that in the Eastern philosophy, they have a different viewing stance and mentality to us in the West. They really, really do. So when being tortured by the Chinese, they see it as a purification. And I remember the Dalai Lama having an interview with this monk who had come out of Tibet. And he said to the monk, what was your worst experience? Because the monk was taken to prison and everything. He said, what was your worst experience that you had? And this monk said, there was a moment when I was being tortured in prison that I almost lost my compassion for the guy who was torturing me. That's a very big story. I almost, and then I remembered that what was going to happen with him torturing me, he was creating his own difficulties and everything. And he said, and I nearly didn't have compassion. So they have a completely different view to us, completely and totally. It's really, really important. And when we do it, it's important to actually understand that. But the Tibetan term lung, or energy wind, refers, I'm just going to do this briefly and then let's do the meditation, refers to phenomena underlying our emotional and psychological experience. Every state of mind rides upon a corresponding state of energy wind. So, like a rider rides a horse, if the horse is wild, the rider will get thrown. If the horse is still, the rider is fine and can ride it. Energy winds are the underlying vitality beneath our emotional life. And the energy wind body is sometimes called the emotional body. Okay? The energy winds carry our disturbances. Okay? So when they carry our mental busyness and our habits of thinking that disturb us are in these energy winds that run through all the channels. The energy winds are the root of our fantasy life, and through projection, they color the way we see the world. Purification is cleansing of the disturbing energy winds. So we can become blocked and toxic and can hold shock and trauma and stresses which are unable to be easily released. Purification, the Vajrasattva practice of the 100 deities, and I'm still coming, I won't be able to get it tonight, but I'm coming to the 100 deities as well. Purification restores to health and clears and heals what has been accumulated through this and many previous lifetimes. We may re-experience the trauma held in the body, the grief, the rage, etc., and our energetic state can be radically changed and resolves old problems. So as you are doing that Vajrasattva purification, or even the purification of any other way, like people do it through yoga, through, working with the channels, through massage, through meditation. We'll do a meditation with it now. But the preliminary practices work on the energy winds, like frustrations, and of course, Vajrasattva. We can feel a washing through the body as we do the practice. And we need to repeatedly do the practices. The more we have awareness, the greater the benefit. So it's really, really important. So what I'm going to do now is, when we're going to do a meditation with the energy winds and the emotions. And then next week, we'll go on to starting the Vajrasattva and what it really means, and a little bit about the Nundra, just a few things. But I really want you to understand that these energy winds can be called the emotional body, run through all the channels, your 3 main channels, and dozens of different channels in your body. Some of you who do yoga practices would know them even better than me. But they are the highways through which the energy winds go. And in the energy winds, you store all your emotional traumas, stuff, habits. It's all in your energy winds. So the more you clear them, the easier it is to break the habit and the obscuration. So I want to do our Lama Yeshe's meditation posture with the energy wind. But does anyone want to ask anything or say anything before we do it? Anybody? Okay, then let's do the practice. I'll just switch this on for the God, and then I'll switch it off. Now I want you to actually get your posture right. I'm going to switch that off. Okay. because the posture is a very good way in the beginning of dealing with the energy winds. And then when you do the Vajrasattva practice, it pours through the channels and clears things out. So do the prostrations. And that is why you can find yourself getting extremely aggravated, or when people start meditating, they actually feel quite a lot of agitation and lots of feelings because the energy winds are not clear. So we're going to just do that. I want you to get into your posture, having your back very straight and your spinal column, which I don't usually insist on, but for this I am, and your hands right over left with the thumbs touching on your lap and your shoulders back, and your neck, your chin must be a little bit tucked in, so you've got it exactly right, so that you're absolutely straight. Okay, so this is Lama Yeshe Rinpoche's meditation posture on the energy winds. So I just want you to breathe very lightly, relaxing the body into this posture. There are 72,000 nadis or energy channels and 6 chakras, wheels of energy in the subtle body. They are responsible for the energy of the body and linked with the mental activity. If our physical body is straight, the nadi or energy channels are also straight, so that the energy flows properly and our mental activity comes under our control. I want you all to understand that the mental activity has so much to do with the energy winds in the channel. And if the body is bent and body and mind get imbalanced, and instead of finding inner peace, we get more disturbed and confused. Our body has 2 types of energy. One is going upward and the other downward. The energy moving downward is usually lost and wasted. When we sit cross-legged, or one foot in front of the other, or a half lotus or a lotus if you can, it stops us losing that downward energy and helps us bring it into the Uma, the central channel. Apart from the 72,000 channels, we have 3 main channels in the subtle body. The Uma is the central channel, and the 2 other channels run parallel to it on each side. The prana, or the energies, are connected with the mind poisons or disturbing emotions and thoughts. The purpose of our practice is to get rid of these negative emotions, or rather transform them, and a proper body posture can support that process. So I know I haven't been very adamant about a body posture, but for this, it's really important, because I want you to be able to just have rikpa and awareness wherever you are. But for this, it really does help you. When we are able to bring the downward flowing life energy into the central channel, that energy is connected to the poison of jealousy. And we will gradually be able to subdue jealousy. So having your body straight, if you do have an envy and jealousy problem, that really is very helpful. When we put our hands on top of one another, it helps bring what we call the water wind energy into the central channel. The water wind is connected to anger. Remember, anger can go down deeply into fear and a lot of pain and anxiety and all of that. So it's for anger. When we bring this water energy into the central channel, we are able to reduce and pacify anger. So what he's saying is, when you have got a lot of these disturbances, if you just sit for a while, your eyes slightly open, your tongue at the top of your palate, and just breathing very easily. Straightening up the arms and shoulders will help bring the earth-wind energy into the central channel. That earth-wind energy seems to be related to ignorance or delusion, and bringing it into the central channel with your arms and your shoulders. So your arms are right on your lap, they're fairly straight, and your arms and your shoulders are nicely straight back. And it helps us to overcome the ignorance and the delusions. In the delusions, we tell ourselves a lot of stories. Shaping the neck and throat like a hook. So putting your chin a little bit in helps to bring the fire wind energy connected to the poison of desire and attachment into the central channel, which helps us to reduce that clinging, that attachment, that wanting, just the neck and throat, bringing all these energies into the central channel instead of them running all over your body, your subtle body. Focusing our eyes and putting the tip of our tongue against our palate will help bring the wind energy into the central channel. We will then be able to reduce or overcome pride, that I'm better than you, you better do what I say, which is related to that energy. We can consider the channels as highways through which the energy winds travel. Just being able to take a proper physical posture will help us really reduce the 5 poison. And when we do the practices, the preliminary practices, the prostrations and the Vajrasattva, we will feel how those energy winds start reacting. Because what we're doing is we're clearing it. And as you clear all those old obscurations, the things we've hung on to, the grudges, the resentment, the sorrow, the fears, just feel them running through your body and out into the spaciousness. And by this posture, we really bring into balance the poisons and the energy winds. So by just sitting a few minutes in the day like this, calming it down and letting all the emotions come up and just letting them dissolve is really, really useful. So that when we do the purification, we can really feel something being cleared over a long period of time. I think all of you can start to read your tapestries of your life and see what it is that we're working through and where we're going. And I think it is absolutely amazing when we start clearing the things, and then we are able to link with that beautiful nature that isn't even one bit tainted or stained by all the things in our lives. Let's dedicate, and then if anybody's got anything they want to ask, I hope that that's a useful thing, because I remembered this beautiful practice that Lama Yeshe Rinpoche gave me a long time ago about the energy wind, and I wanted to link it with doing the other practices, because when we next week we'll go on to becoming Vajrasattva and what the 100 deities really means in our lives, and be able to do it even if you do it short, because it's really, really important. I know that when I do it, I feel it in my bones and I feel it going into other people. And it's the most clearing practice. And that's what we're here to do. I was saying to somebody today, you know, when you get into your 70s, particularly, you know, what are you doing now? Are you trying to have a good time? Are you trying to, what are you doing? To me, this is really a vital time to be able to consider that when you come to the gates of death, all of this dissolves, except those imprints. Everything else dissolves. The body, the weight problems, the eating problems, the family, the people we attach to, the children we think are ours, gone. The only thing that remains, if you can't recognize who you are, which we were talking about, is actually this alaya substrate consciousness, where all the imprints are in. So don't go with any of them in you, nothing. So that then you're free to free yourself and choose where you want to be after this. It's really important. So let's dedicate, and then I'll stay if anybody wants to ask, to all sentient beings. I think this world is in a sorrowful place. I think we're in an age of degeneration. And I think that it's going to get a lot worse than this. But just watching sometimes the television, I pray for all those who are encapsulated in these terrible tragedies, for the hostages, for the people in the wars, for all the unnecessary things that are happening, that seem to be happening. And I really, really, really dedicate whatever merit can come from this teaching to all the beings, not only in the human realm, but in all realms. And through this merit, may all beings attain omniscience. May all obscurations fall away from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may all beings be freed. Sonam die tamche zipane topne nepe dranam panshene chegana chibala tropaye sipe sole doa do warsho. So is everybody okay?